wish that I could just wish away my feelings, but I can't.
Sand hurts my feelings.
I don't like sand.
Hurts my feelings.
Haunted by big sand in my very soul. Sand. Are you suffering as much as I am?
Sand hurts my feelings.
Tormenting me. I'm in agony.
Sand hurts my feelings.
I don't like sand.
Hello, and welcome to The Sand Hurts My Feelings, a Star Wars podcast from a Swiftie point of view. I'm your host, Alex.
And I'm your other host, Sarah. And today we're doing a reflective look on our past season here, Season 2, on Padme Amidala.
Season finale of Season 2. Then we get to start talking about Rey.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves here.
I will absolutely get ahead of ourselves. This is the next episode. We're excited. This is what this episode is about. Wrap up.
Yes, I am excited to talk about Rey, but I want to give Padme the respect she deserves and, frankly, didn't get. So with our past wrap-up episode, we'll kind of take a look back at the picks that we did for Padme Amidala, respectively, because with each of us picking one song from Taylor's 11 albums, you more or less create a playlist. So we'll kind of take a look back, chat about our picks, and what we're looking forward to with Rey.
Sounds great.
So why don't you kick us off, Alex?
So for my playlist, I will say there are definitely, I think mine is really strong. And I actually think it flows pretty well. Theme-wise, I don't think it flows as well as my Leia one. Because to me, with my Leia one, I think I kind of, and none of this was planned, but it flowed from as she was growing and as it worked to how she became an elder, rebellion, and then the resistance. But with Padme, it was kind of just all over the board because unfortunately we don't get as much of Padme because we got a lot of Leia. We got 6 movies. And with Padme, we get very little that's actually about her. It's more about how she relates to Anakin, which is, I think, the thing that disappoints me the most about it. So I will say, I think I'm most impressed. Don't get me wrong. I think I have some 1 or 2 bangers about Padme and Anakin, but I only was able to do 4 out of the 11 albums without Anakin. So to me, that isn't great, and none of these characters passed the Bechdel test, which, do you know what the Bechdel test is?
I do, yes.
Yes.
So the Bechdel test, for listeners, was created by social scientists, and it basically asks 3 questions of a movie, specifically female characters within a movie, of it's like a thing of how many lines they have, if they talk to another female, and if the other female they talk, if the conversation with that other female they talk to is about a man or not. So yeah, it must feature to have more than one woman in the movie, that those women talk to each other in the movie, and that their conversation does not revolve around a man. So that if a movie hits those 3 criteria, then it passes the Bechdel test. And specifically, the prequel trilogies do not do that.
I don't know. That's where I've thought there. I don't think I would agree. I think it's close. I mean, the sequel trilogy does it, but the prequel trilogy doesn't do it.
That's what I'm saying.
But the original trilogy doesn't either.
No.
And so the sequel trilogy does do it. I don't know. So my question is how long that conversation needs to be, because there is a scene in Attack of the Clones, my least favorite prequel, where one of the handmaidens talks to Padme and says, "I'm worried about you." And so I'm like, is that a conversation? Because there's 2 women talking to each other, but it's very brief. So I would say that probably doesn't count.
Well, I mean, along those lines, too, then you have in Phantom Menace where Padme is talking to her handmaidens, and either choice faces when Qui-Gon presents them, you have to.
Oh, that's not a conversation. That one I know that's not a conversation. The other one is Padme is talking to. It's when they're getting on the ship and leaving, and she's talking to her handmaiden, played by Rose Byrne, who's like, "Oh, why are you sad? Oh, we'll be okay. Like, and she's like, nope, I'm not worried about me. I'm worried about you, and stuff like that. But I'm like, it's not really a conversation. So I would say it doesn't pass that test. But that's what I was thinking about.
Right, it doesn't really. And then we have no instances of that in Revenge of the Sith. We barely get any women in Revenge of the Sith, to be honest, because we get just glimpses of Padme.
Or female Jedi who die.
Correct. So we were going with this.
So I'll jump back in. So
Yeah.
that's where we were leading with this. I am the most proud of my song choices that did not include Anakin and Padme. When I focused on Padme, focusing on other things. So for me, Better Than Revenge is a really good pick that I really liked because that was about Padme and the Trade Federation. And also one that I really liked was Would've, Could've, Should've with Padme and Palpatine. And that I think Would've, Could've, Should've is probably my favorite pick because it's related to the Star Wars universe. Because I went on a big rant, if you were all with us, for The Man, and between George, because we talked about I talked a lot about how she was horrifically, as we believe that she was not treated correctly in this arc because it was felt that Anakin's story was more important, and so I really like that pick. But it's not. It's definitely fourth wall breaking. So I would say Would've, Could've, Should've is probably my favorite of mine. But there isn't. I don't think there's a flow like there was on my last pick. Like it's kind of, it flows a little bit, but it's not like. I think the sound is good, but it's not like here's the story.
Oh, I disagree. When I was listening to your songs in order, again, like you didn't set out to do this, but to me, it's like the first three songs that you picked were all angry, bitter songs. Because you had Should Have Said No, Forever and Always, and Better Than Revenge. And so there's anger and bitterness in those songs. Then your next three are the brief love period that Padme has. And like a happy love. And what I really, really like is you have, from then it kind of builds percussively because you have a lot of percussion in Wonderland, Gorgeous, and The Man, and then it completely drops out when you hit Hoax. And so like that is so stark, and Hoax is really where you start the loss. And the rest of your playlist focuses all on the losses that Padme endures. And so I really I know you didn't intend for that, but I really you kind of chunk it out of like anger, love, and then loss, and then how the percussion builds in that middle to then just have everything drop out once you hit that loss chapter.
Yeah, because my loss chapter I get unintentional because I would even say, and this is why I like doing this podcast, because that is not what I see when I hear that at all. Because to me, we just read things so differently. And it's so fascinating with that reading because I'm like, to me, Forever and Always that's to me a loss song. Even though it has like anger in it, like that's a loss song because it's like you said Forever and Always and stuff like that. So that I think was where I got tipped of like it's not really a flow because it's not like chunked. But I appreciate that perspective because I think it's very different and very intriguing how different things flow out. I personally thought that Years flowed a lot better than mine.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. Because to me, yours had more of a story, and you had because you mostly stay with Anakin and Padme. There's I think you have technically like 3 that are and like mine was only 4, so it's not that big. But to me, I think yours were more focused in on Anakin and Padme because, and it's kind of like intermittent of like randomly there's one here, randomly the one's here that doesn't necessarily take away from the flow versus mine I felt was like, oh, here's randomly in the beginning Anakin or Padme and Trade Federation, and then here's randomly Padme and George. And I think that's the one that probably like in my own brain was like the big like divide because I'm like, I'm not talking about Anakin, Padme, and I'm not even really talking about Padme in universe. I'm just like angry at everything, so I'm probably bringing in my own feelings on that of like this is a jarring cut versus an outsider's perspective. But to me, yours I think flowed a lot better. So, what do you think about your playlist?
Well, I was going to make a comment on your playlist and The Man, because when we talked about The Man for Padme, it was very much a fourth wall breaking piece. But I do like the build up that you have in Gorgeous prior to The Man of like, you are so gorgeous, it makes me so mad. And so it's like you have that kind of building up, and, Padme suffers because of that love, and she gets a lot taken away of her agency taken away in the storytelling because of that. So to me, it still fits within your kind of that larger theme of it.
Oh, sure, and I agree. And I think after a few more listens through the playlist, I will see it even more. But it's just like it's my own. This is how I made things, and I'm not. And as we've said multiple times now, like this wasn't a planned playlist. So to me, I'm just like it's a bunch of songs I just threw together. Like it's not supposed to rhyme. And then I listen to yours, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like you planned it. So it's I think it's the opposite thing of like I just am like. It is what I chose. It just happened to fall that way. Versus I can look at yours and like, oh my gosh, look at this flow, and you're like, I just randomly did this. I'm like, but you had to have a plan. And as you're saying, kind of with mine, of like, it flows really well. I'm like, I had no idea.
See, I think it's interesting you say that mine. I think it's interesting that you say mine flows, because when I was listening to mine, I'm like, I think, I have a couple of nice transitions or ones that go well together, but mine felt so jarring to listen to as a whole. I'm like individually, like I get these for Padme and I feel these for Padme, but I wouldn't put them in the order of that they ended up in. To me, it's a jarring listen. But I do really like in the playlist that I created the transitions between Perfectly Good Heart and Bye Bye Baby. I mean, because those, when we were talking about them, they're like both about Mustafar and how they build upon each other. And like I like that transition. And I also really like the transition from Sad, Beautiful, Tragic to Wildest Dreams, because it's like they have an affair, but like remember me fondly. So I liked that transitional piece. But I mean, in between those two, you have Superman, which is just totally like does not fit the vibe of those slower, more sentimental songs. So like to me, that's jarring. And then like the back half of my playlist is kind of happy because you have. So like my last three songs are Dorothea, Bejeweled, and But Daddy, I Love Him. And so it ends really happy. And so it's like those kind of go together, but then you fade in and out with some of these other beats. And I just it didn't sit as well with me as listening to yours and kind of having a flow in the I guess the tone and the pacing of the songs.
Okay, that's where I think we're getting a little off on our definitions of like, because to me, tonally, all of your songs fit.
Oh.
Like, because when you say Superman, to me, when you say Superman is a jarring, to me that one, like, yeah, it's a little faster, I think, than the other songs that you picked or whatever in that, especially in that transition. But like, it's still one of her softer songs. And to me, and versus like mine jump up to like you have The Man, and you have like Better Than Revenge, and like these hard hitting songs also with like Hoax and L'Homme. And like it's the slower, it's like yours is just a steady kind of calm playlist. That's kind of where that's what I was talking about of like I'm tonally, I don't know. I would say I don't know if it necessarily flows the whole like through the whole story, but like the sound of it just flows nicely of like this is a calming playlist to listen through versus mine is just like Forever and Always and Should Have Said No, and then bam, another one, and then bam, and then oh, we're switching back, and that kind of like, and then as you said of like we get The Man and then we get Hoax, and you're just like it drops. And so I'm like, to me, thinking about that now, the way you're saying it like that, it makes sense, and it seems to be a cooler transition than intended. But like that's the kind of stuff where of like when I'm listening to a playlist, I don't tend to like drastic shifts in the songs. It's kind of like, oh, here is this song, and So I would I would think yours, based on our descriptions, I would say yours sounds more like a playlist, and mine maybe sounds more like a soundtrack. And so like mine is like telling a story through the songs of like, okay, and then everything drops out, and then that's where everything is gone, and that's where the bad things happen. Versus yours is kind of like a nice calm sound, like you put on a playlist, if like you put on a chill playlist or you put on a running playlist because you're looking for an all kind of the same type of thing.
I kind of see that now.
So that's kind of where I was talking about, of like yours has a good flow versus mine does not.
I now that you explain it that way, I can kind of see it. I see it that way too. I do really like both of our closing songs, so our picks for TTPD. And I think it's the two sides of Padme, because you picked Lommel, LOML, Loss of My Life or Love of My Life, and it's reflective of everything that she has lost and all of these sacrifices and everything taken away from her. And then, but Daddy, I Love Him is like, I can't undo the destiny. Like, this is what it is. And I mean, that speaks to her dying breath. It's like she loses everything, but she's like, there's still good in him. So to me, I think both of those are really good songs to like cap off our respective playlists with.
I would agree. I think they're really, really good picks. I also just want to just shout out, and I know we've said it in each of the episodes, but I'm like, I found this season so different from Leia because we seemed to be locked in on themes throughout each, without talking to each other. We're like, this episode we're talking about Mustafar. This episode we're talking, like, we didn't match on any of our songs, but I'm like, this is where I think we came the closest in like our character finding of like, we both talked about like, oh, this is Anakin and Padme's relationship when they are when she's dying, or this is Padme when she was young. This is Padme on Naboo as she's a queen. This is her as a senator. Like those, I think we matched up a lot more on this season. There was a few that I think we were completely different, but like this one, we were like, oh, did we get close? Did we get, oh, and you were like, there was actual like, oh, like, did we get close? And we're like, oh, darn, just missed it. But I'm like, the theme is the same and the sentiment is the same. Again, showing of like how different perspectives can show, like, you picked this totally different song that I did, but they both can mean the same thing.
So then I pose the question to you. Do you think we had some of more of those similar themes and almost matching moments? Because, yeah, like our first two episodes were like, this is Padme on Mustafar, but we picked completely different songs. Does that speak more to us having more limited material with Padme than we did with Leia? Or is that the thematic elements within Taylor's songs? Because a lot of Taylor's songs are about love and heartbreak and exploring that grief and loss that can come with that, and the ecstasy that can come with that, and that highlights Padme's story in a way that doesn't speak for Leia.
I think it's a combination of both, but I think the big piece is the limitation on information on Padme. Because unfortunately, even the stuff, like, it's just, she's so limited is the thing. Is like, and even if we want more, and like we get, because you pick some stuff from like Clone Wars, and there's the Padme books and stuff like that, which we love, but like it's still about the same stuff and the same period of life. Like, she's just a very limited period of her life, so there's not a lot she can change. Because like with Leia, you saw as she changed, like, we now have Obi-Wan, the show Obi-Wan, so we have her as a little girl, and then we have her as a young adult, and then we have her as an adult, and then we have her as old adult. Like, there, we have all of these different things that we can watch as she grows, and we can see, because I did the book on her as a teenager and Princess of Alderaan, and then how she's like, this is the first step into becoming, and the first step into the rebellion, and how she learns of like the cost of the rebellion. And then later on we both did picks about where she's dealing with the cost and is it worth it and that kind of stuff. So it's like you can have her evolve versus Padme. It's kind of she can evolve from being a queen to a senator, and that's about as far as she goes. There's not much more there's not much more themes you can look at.
No, that's true. I mean, you would, because yeah, we have the entirety of Leia's life laid out to us in the Star Wars canon. Like we see her birth and we see her death, and so we know where point A and point B are, and the filling in those pieces. It's like you could go back to Padme's birth, but the time before she's queen, it's like there's what story is there to tell that you could bring about? And to your point, I mean, I feel almost every Padme episode we talk about the E.K. Johnston trilogy because it is fantastic. And I think it does give a lot more depth to Padme and her handmaidens, but you're still working within a set 10-year time frame of, between Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. And you're still going to be struggling with a specific set of issues. And yeah, because Padme dies so young, there's a ceiling you hit. There's a wall you hit in places you can go and explore. Which, did you have anything more to say on that?
Yeah. I mean, like that's the frustration more that I think I have with the Man episode, where I'm just like, she's handcuffed. Like you can expand on her character more, but you can't change her character enough to add more depth to. Like you can be like, oh yeah, she was fighting with him, like, but there's a reason E.K. Johnston didn't go into Revenge of the Sith, like because there's just not enough there for her. Like that George has not given her anything, and you're like, well, if you try to pretend that she's doing stuff, it's like, what are we doing here? Are we changing the character? You're gonna get so many people who are upset of you're changing Star Wars and stuff like that, and I'm just like, okay guys, touch some grass. But so that's where I think it is unfortunate of like, yeah, she's kind of, as I say, she's been fridged and you can't really change it. You can't make her, you want to make her better. That's where I will say, so this is dating a little bit. There are a lot of people that really want Natalie Portman to come back as Padme Amidala in the new in some kind of flashbacks or whatever. I wholeheartedly disagree. I do not that I don't love Natalie Portman. I'm like, I do not want to see Padme again, because to me it's total fan service, and it's not going to change anything. It's just going to, like, you're going to look and see Hayden and Padme back together in a flashback, and you're like, oh cool, we saw them together. And I'm like, but it doesn't add anything to her character. So come at me for that. I if you love it, if you want to see it, and if we do see it, I'll enjoy it. But I'm just like, I would rather. There's not much to say with that. But anyway, I'm derailing us a little bit.
A little bit. But that kind of tees off where, kind of as we enter season 3 with Rey, like that's where I'm curious where our picks are going to. Well, I know where my picks went. I'm curious to see and hear where your picks went. Because again, so Padme, we had 3 movies. Rey, we have 3 movies. One of the benefits with Padme is we had the E.K. Johnston trilogy. We had all of Clone Wars. Whereas with Rey, we really only have the sequel trilogy. There's not been other content put out with Rey or featuring Rey. I know she appears in some of the books, kind of in and around, basically like novelizations of the movies. I don't know if she appears in Resistance Reborn. I know that focuses more around Poe and Leia, but having not read that, I don't know if she appears in that. But to me, we have an even smaller pool of content to pull from. So that's where I'm intrigued as to where you go with it.
Yeah, no, I think, well, that's the funny thing, because I think we're not going to come even close on matching. That's where I just think that is an interest. I hadn't thought about that, because I was just like, nope, we were so penned in with Padme with the 3 movies, but I'm like, I don't think that's the thing, is I think we're not necessarily penned in, because there's so much the development that happens to Rey throughout those 3 movies. Granted, they are only 3. I do want to give everybody a warning. I am not a Raylo fan, so I was fine, and I have nothing against people who are Raylos, but I am not a fan of their pairing after Last Jedi. So I was okay with them up until the end of Last Jedi, and then I am no longer. I don't like that pairing. So in my songs, it is more, if I do focus on Raylo, it is going to be more on like the heartbreak and stuff like that versus the like, oh, he's the love of my life at the end kind of a thing. It might be beginning love of the life, but yeah, just wanted to give everybody a heads up on that and preview of I am probably going to actually focus or attempt to focus more on non-romantic pieces with Ray.
Sure. I guess teasing a little bit, I do have some Raylo stuff, but the Raylo pieces I have too could also be interpreted as the dyad and the Force in a non-romantic way. So it's more so about their connection as a whole. You could make it romantic if you wanted to. You wouldn't have to. And then I, off the top of my head, remember I have 2 songs that are meta. So we're going to tease that there. I'm not going to tell you which albums they're off of, but 2 songs go meta.
Okay, you have 2 songs. I have 1 song that goes meta. So okay, we're taking the lead and we're jumping off the screen. So
when at least for me, I feel a better position to do that with Ray, because that was where I was more into the Star Wars fandom when those movies were coming out, versus I was not alive in the 70s and 80s when the original trilogy came out, and I hadn't discovered Star Wars when the prequel trilogy was coming out and having the dialogue around those. But being like fully into the culture wars and experiencing the movies as they came out, and we're coming up on Force Awakens' 10th anniversary here at the end of the year, which is wild. But like being more in the Star Wars conversations at those times, that kind of inspired those picks.
Okay, with you mentioning certain pieces of that, we may match. I don't know. There's one song I have for my meta. We'll see. It'll be, yeah. We'll see.
I'm so excited. Very excited.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you for coming with us on this journey through Padme and the queens of Long Live the Queens of Padme and Taylor Swift. We had a wonderful time discussing this with each other. We hope that you all enjoyed listening to us. Start letting us know now what you would like to hear for season 4, because we do like to get a little bit prepared and try to have some things lined up. We do have all of season 3, but let us know, who do you want us to do next? Do you want us to do Mon Mothma, Hera Syndulla? What female characters? Do you want to go dark side with Asajj Ventress? Let us know. Also, like, review, and tell people about us. We'd like to grow as a bigger podcast. We're trying to get to different cons and stuff like that, but we can only grow through you, the fans, and we appreciate all of you. If you want to communicate with us, you can do so on the sandhurtsmyfeelingspod@gmail.com. You can send us an email, or you can contact us through Blue Sky at Sandy Feelings, or Instagram and Threads is a nice, very communication place. I've been putting a lot more reels and stuff like that out there. You can comment on any of our posts, send us a DM at Sandhurst My Feelings Pod. Yeah, we also have a Redbubble store, a TeePublic store, any of those things you want to do. We have a Ko-Fi store if you want to help us fund our wonderful stickers and T-shirts that we've made and stuff like that. But we are excited for season 3, which will be coming out in August.
Yeah, August slipped away like a bottle of wine. But yeah, until next time.
May the Force be with you.
Forever and always.
May the Force be with you.
Forever and always, yeah.